thanks for tuning into this week's video. I hope you're having fun whatever you're doing and wherever you're at. Today is going to be probably a bit more intense because I want to talk about loneliness. Normally I'm doing really fun videos and trying to keep things light and upbeat and fun. I've actually been studying a lot of the Enneagram, and if you're not familiar with what that is, it is a personality test, and it is a program that many people use to kind of type themselves and determine their tendencies and their motivations, their fears, and that sort of thing. And so it's really interesting if you want to find out about people, and I'm very much like that. I love learning about people. I love learning about what drives someone in their day-to-day life, what causes them to act a certain way or to react in certain ways, and to learn from that, to grow from that, to be a better person. If you don't know, I'm a type 7, and type 7s are fun. So they are all about fun, and they're all about happiness, and they're all about joy, and they're all about like what's the next fun thing that we can do together. And as an extrovert, I'm also very much a people person, and so loneliness seems to be kind of like not something that you would think that I would struggle with. I will say that moving out on my own has been really different and really eye-opening for me, and I always loved being around people, being around my family, and I always went home and was able to kind of decompress with my family. But moving out on my own, I actually don't have that anymore, and I still have lots of people to talk to and lots of friends, but it's different. And so I have to actually pick up the phone and call someone if I want to talk or whatever, and it's actually given me a whole nother perspective on life and how to function as myself without anyone else. Basically, to learn who I am all by myself. And it's been interesting. And so today's video, I actually want to talk about loneliness and labels. So loneliness, it's something that I believe that we all kind of experience, and it seems to affect everyone in different stages, or in a lot of stages of our lives, and it appears in a lot of different seasons in life, even when we seem to have it all together and have a lot of friends. Loneliness, I feel like, can make me feel isolated at the worst of times. I might be having a great day, hanging out with friends and family, but that feeling seems to interrupt me at inconvenient times. And what I found is loneliness doesn't discriminate. It seems to affect all people of all ages, all walks of life, and it just steals our peace. And it affects everyone. It affects single people, but it affects married people too. It affects mothers, it affects daughters and fathers and sons and grandmas and grandpas. Like literally, even, you would think, oh yeah, it would affect an only child because they don't have siblings. Well, but it also affects people with brothers and sisters. And it affects, aunts and uncles and your cousins, and, it even affects our pets. I've seen so we have 2 dogs, Princess and Lily, and whenever Princess died, I noticed that Lily just acted different, and she seemed lonely, and so that it affects many different people, many different even animals. But loneliness isn't something that we experience alone. It's funny to say that because I feel like at some point in time, we all experience loneliness. I've put some thought into why we feel lonely even when we shouldn't. And when you see that people who are living happy, successful lives and should be happy people, they still experience this feeling of loneliness. And it's just not it's not just the person in the back of the group that's lonely. Like, even leaders are lonely. And I think that feeling alone, the feeling of loneliness is just that. It's a feeling. And it's not our identity. It's not what defines us. But my thoughts are that I think that people feel most isolated when they feel like they aren't understood. I think that sometimes when people around you, when you tell them about your experiences or whatever, unless they've actually experienced that with you, sometimes it can be difficult to truly understand what someone is talking about or what someone is experiencing. And I know that for me, when I went on my mission trips to Japan and China, I would come back and I would tell people about it, and I would be really excited, and I would be like, hey, this is what happened and this is how it was, and people would be like, that's really cool. But it was talking about it to someone who didn't go with me versus talking to someone who was on the trip with me or maybe had gone on a trip similar to mine was night and day, because the person who had gone on the trip with me or had experienced a similar trip knew much closer to exactly what I was talking about versus someone who's never been out of the country before. And so it's really interesting to see how much you can feel like you're connected to them. So basically it can be really difficult to really understand where someone's coming from unless you've walked the same path. I found that you can be in a room full of people and still feel isolated, and it's because you don't feel like that you can relate with anyone in that room. Maybe they do care, but they just don't get you. And people can have sympathy, but not always empathy. I think that loneliness is often why people want to label themselves, and people think that they need all these labels to describe them because they are searching for a place of belonging. And they're looking for an identity. They want to be called something, and they're looking for approval. And I think that we all have a level of approval that we want. Some people act like they don't care, but really they definitely do care. I think that labels are a form of community, and I'm all for community. But sometimes I think that labeling is a little dangerous because it sets us apart instead of brings us together. And so I think that there's a fine line there. I'm not sure where the balance is at, but I think that sometimes if you label yourself a certain way, that it actually discriminates against instead of bringing together, and maybe does the opposite effect of what you think that it's doing. But like I said, it's a fine line, and it can be difficult to define. So anyway, there are a few things that I found that help in combating these feelings of loneliness and isolation. And the first one is to pray. Maybe some of you aren't particularly religious, and maybe you don't pray, but I truly think that when you don't feel understood, that's when you need to turn to God and just pray, because He's the one that understands you the most, and He will understand you. He actually understands you better than you understand yourself, and He will give direction. He will give guidance. 1 is to pray. 2 is to get into a group that are walking in a similar path as you. And this, as I've said, goes into the labeling thing. And I think that finding people who are in similar seasons as you are is important. Like if you're a mama and you need to find like-minded mamas who are raising their children similar to how you'd like to raise your children, and share with each other your wins and struggles. To find someone that understands you on a deeper level, I think is really ideal, really key, and that is a healthy form of labeling. I think that there's also unhealthy forms of labeling that you have to be careful about. Number 3, to reach out first. One of the silliest things I think that we all do is that we think that someone else needs to start the conversation, and that you're waiting for someone else to come to you or to say hey or to what have you. But if you're waiting for them to do that, then they're probably waiting for you to do that. Whether that means to call or to text first or to start resolving conflict, what have you. It depends on the situation, but if you're not the one that's willing to start first, then I think that you put yourself in a box. If you go around expecting someone else to start, then no one starts and nothing begins. So it starts with you. So that pretty much wraps up this video. I know that it was kind of deep, maybe kind of intense for what I'm usually bringing. in my channel, but I thought that it was important, and I think that loneliness is something that we can all relate with, and I think that it's an important topic, and it's something that should be talked about more often. And one thing that this video is not is for me to say, I'm so lonely, like, feel sorry for me. That's not at all what this video is. I'm fine. I'm happy, and I'm doing good. But it's also just a topic that I wanted to kind of talk about, that I wanted to open the conversation, that if someone is feeling lonely and wants to talk, to please start. And in trying to do that, I wanted to start. So I want to start the conversation. So if you're feeling lonely, then feel free to reach out, and if you don't feel comfortable reaching out to me, then find someone that is a close confidant that you can reach out to, and you know, to no longer isolate yourself, because I think that isolation is very dangerous. I hope that this video was inspiring, or maybe just thought-provoking. I'm not sure if this is an inspiring kind of video, but I hope that you will take it to heart, and like I said, if you're feeling lonely, to reach out. I usually do makeup and lifestyle kind of videos, so if you enjoy this kind of content, then please subscribe to my channel. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoy this kind of stuff, where I just sit down and talk about different topics. Don't forget to ring the bell, because that alerts you that I'm uploading a new video. And until next time, I will see you later. Bye!